look, right? So here we see a wick rejection, huge break to the downside. So again, we see 169 for 355, right? Blue delta. We see 203 for 342. We see 9 for 72. So throughout this entire kind of order flow, what we can see is aggressive buy orders are not able to break above the level, right? So we can see the market barely got halfway through, or just above halfway through. This wick here, this is another example. So if you want to know how price creates supply, you're never going to get that from any of these concepts, right? You need to understand aggressive buy orders are failing, right? You have to know that. So again, if we just go and keep going forward, back in this presentation. So it's never a sweep of liquidity, a breaker structure, an inverse fair value gap, support and resistance. It's never any of these concepts, right? These concepts don't work. What you really need to understand is the two basic concepts, which is aggressive buyers fail and they get absorbed by passive sellers. And it's the passive sellers that creates the move downwards. So whenever you're looking at any kind of zone, you want to try and understand who is aggressive, right? Is the delta positive? Is the delta negative? And once you have that information, you can then start to piece together which direction break am I looking for. So for example, if you see a lot of aggressive buy orders and we see a break to the downside, this signifies the fact that sellers are really in control. We have a supply zone, right? That's literally what's going on. So that represents what's going on here, right? So supply outstrips demand, right? So what we can do is we can find an example, a flip, kind of a flip zone example. So the opposite. Let's kind of look here, for example, right? So here we had a bit of chop, but what's important to understand, this zone gave us somewhat of a bullish reaction. So we kind of rallied from 67.90 to 68.15, 16 area. So what was going on inside of here? Let's kind of dive into this one. Now, if we just take a look here, what we're really seeing here is we're seeing kind of, a break above the zone. But what we see here is a lot of aggressive selling coming into the zone, right? So here is there's a lot of aggressive sellers here, here, here. So all these candles over here. Now, what's interesting here, if we kind of dive into one candle at a time, this is a green candle. But what's interesting inside this green candle is we can see a massive red delta. In fact, this number here says 135 for 78. So yes, it's a green candle, but we see a lot of selling activity, aggressive selling activity inside of this zone, right? And this is the main reason why the markets rally higher, right? So even here, mini sort of break and retest, if we just take a look, this retest was full of 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's like 4 times 20 before this big move to the upside. So yes, we move higher, but what was going on upon this retest here? The retest signifies to us that aggressive sellers were present. But if these aggressive sellers were successful, they would have broken below the zone. But they weren't able to do that. And so this is how demand is created, right? This is how the market prints demand, right? And so this is what we have here.